We transport 80% of the traffic over the internet. We process 625 billion URL requests a day. We are the plumbers of the internet. We are the people who connect things, and we believe we connect things more efficiently, effectively and sustainably than anybody else. We have been innovating for nearly 20 years around power efficiency in our product portfolio. So we're very focused with all of our customers in terms of showing them how they can reduce significantly the power consumption. And we've got instances where the saving on power and cooling can pay for an infrastructure refresh in the data center over a 5-year period. I focus on the things that I believe are my strengths and the things where I can deliver most positive impact. If I believe I can do that, and if I believe I'm doing that, I go home happy.
This is CIONET TV. My name is Hendrik Deckers. I'm here today with Gordon Thomson, who is the Vice President for the EMEA service provider business at Cisco. A very warm welcome, Gordon.
Hendrik, pleasure to be with you. Pleasure.
Gordon, you're a born Scotsman.
I am.
You're a university dropout.
I am.
And you wanted to become a professional golfer.
I did.
But you have been with Cisco since 1997. So
yes.
Tell us all about that. What's the story and how did you arrive in this position today?
Well, I always believed to follow your passion. And my passion from an early age was golf. Well, it was all sport, but I recognized that the sport I was best at, the one I had the best chance at was golf.
Okay.
So I followed that passion. I followed that passion religiously. I practiced every day. I wanted to become the best, and I had some good success when I was younger. Decided at that point I was going to go to university. Decided I wanted to study history. That was a mistake, candidly. While also spending and investing a lot of time in golf. Once I got to 19, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a real go. And I decided against all advice to drop out of university and to try and become a professional golfer. And unfortunately for me, after about 6 months, I developed something called the yips in golf, which is really on the putting green where all the money is made. Your inability to actually put the ball in the hole. The muscle memory was stopping you being able to really put the ball in the hole. And very few professional golfers have made it to the top level with the yips.
Yep.
The only one that people in Europe would really recognize in terms of a mainstream name was Bernhard Langer from Germany. And my psyche was, do you know what, if I amn't going to really stand a chance of being the best, I probably wasn't going to be as committed to it as I wanted to be.
Yep.
And made the very difficult decision that actually corporate life or some form of business life was where I was going to succeed and be successful.
Yep.
And although golf is still a big passion of mine, and I still have the yips today, nearly 40 years later, I still love golf. But my passion in my life focuses around, how I can help people understand and to use technology to their benefit.
Yeah. So you work now more than 25 years at Cisco.
I do.
Cisco is 40 years old as a company. So we all know Cisco as a name, but tell us again, what is it that Cisco does and what does it really, really well?
Yeah, so Cisco was really formed through the innovation around routing or routing technology. And this was really the ability to be able to connect two different networks together. It came out of Stanford University, a husband and wife team who wanted to communicate across the campus, but they couldn't find a way to electronically communicate across the campus. And they developed the router, or if we were in the US today, we would call it the router. And they developed this product. They went to get funding for this product from Stanford University. And in the same semester, the university had already put out funding to Stanford University Network, a small team who had developed something called Stanford University Network, which spun into be Sun Microsystems. So in the very same semester, two companies came out of Stanford University, Sun Microsystems and what became Cisco. So Cisco came about in 1986, first developed in 84. They IPO'd in 1990. And between 1990 and 2001, became the fastest growing company in American stock market history. So obviously a lot of happy investors all over the world in terms of the growth of the company. And fundamentally, the company's reasons for existing today are very similar to the reasons for existing in the past. We are the plumbers of the internet. We are the people who connect things. And we believe we connect things more efficiently, effectively, and sustainably than anybody else. And our cause is to make sure we connect the world. If we can connect the world, we can create an inclusive future for the world. And our purpose today is about creating that inclusive future through connectivity.
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit from the business point of view first, Gordon, and that is, we live in special times, right? I mean, there's economic pressure, there's financial pressure, there's political instability and so on. So our organizations are really going through quite some challenges, right? So, and that means that companies really need to re-architect the way that they operate. They need to rethink how they operate. So what I want to discuss today with you is, how do we make sure that Cisco is a future-proof organization? How is Cisco managing that, and how are you helping your clients to be future-proof? And so let's maybe look at different angles from that. So maybe from the top, what are for you the main business challenges that organizations are faced with today?
Okay, so as you say, we're going through challenging times across the board in every industry sector. And the IT organization that we predominantly sell to has many different challenges that they need to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay. The first challenge is really around simplification. Okay. How can we simplify the way that we operate our networks today? If we can simplify, hopefully we reduce the operating costs to be able to operate those networks.
Yeah.
So the first thing that's at the heart of their thinking is, how can we simplify? Now, they do that through automation, and automation is a big investment area for companies like Cisco, driven by software that helps us drive that simplification for our customers. The second thing IT departments are looking at is, how do we secure the environment for our customers?
Yeah.
Okay. The reality is, in most instances now, the bad guys will get in. It's about what you do when the bad guys get in. It's about how you mitigate against that when the bad guys get in. It's about how you can, really preserve your environment if the bad guys get in. And so there's a lot going on in the security space.
Yep.
Software driven predominantly, again, to help assess threat, understand network behavior, to try and predict problems before they occur. The third area, especially in Europe, that customers are focused on is energy costs. IT produces a lot of energy, and our customers are very focused on reducing the energy costs and making their network environments, their data centers, much more efficient. So a third area that customers will focus on is, how can we drive down the power consumption in our network environments? The fourth thing they're focused on is, for those people who are using our IT equipment, okay, so maybe our employees or our customers, how can we improve the user experience for them? Okay, how do we make that user experience better? How do we make it easier for them to consume our technology? How do we make our networks more secure, but at the same time make it easy for people to gain access to the network? So all of these things around user experience become a big thing. And then the final thing they're really thinking about is, I want my environments to be open. I want my environments to be standards-based in terms of the way that they operate. I want to think about how I can use technologies like AI and ML, to provide me with better insight in terms of how we move forward. So there's a lot of innovation, positive innovation going on around open, standards-based, AI and ML in terms of the impact they have on businesses. So those are the kind of key conversations that we're having with CIOs today around the network.
Okay, super. So 5 main challenges that you see that CIOs are faced with today. So let's unpack each one of these.
Okay.
So the first thing that you say is there's complexity out there, we need to simplify things, we need to automate things. How does Cisco help its customers, its service providers, but globally all its customers to really automate things?
Okay, so we do that by building what we call a platform-based approach. Okay, if you look today at the vast majority of the software products that are built out there in the market space, software products are built for a specific requirement. Very niche in most instances, easy to take to market because it's a low cost of entry. But we run into the challenge of these niche low cost of entry products ultimately having limited visibility. Okay, if you have limited visibility, you have limited awareness of what's going on. And although they can operate very well in their silo, the reality of the situation is your operational cost for having multiple products that with limited visibility, you have complexity creep, you have operational cost creep. So what we're beginning to build towards now is the ability to, first of all, integrate these products together at a visibility layer. So to be able to have observability across all of these products and see what's happening. And when you start to layer things like AI and ML on top of that, you can start to deliver some nice, insights back to the business in terms of risk or performance and things like that. So that's really the first element of how we're approaching this. We're approaching this from a platform basis in terms of integrating the observability. Thereafter, you look at the integration of the management. So ultimately, you don't want loads of different, management interfaces. The good thing is, if you have a full observability stack, at least you can tell the network operators, do this to mitigate this risk or do this to improve this performance. And if you have to do it in different management tools, that's okay. Ultimately, you want to move to one management tool if possible. That's a bit harder, but the observability is easier. To provide end-to-end observability up and down your stack and horizontally across your environment is the critical thing that will help our customers reduce their operational complexity today in their environment. So we're very focused on talking to our customers about how they build platforms for observability in terms of how they can monitor network performance, network security, application performance, application security, these sorts of things.
Okay. Now you mentioned your customers, BT. We're here in the BT offices, is one of your partners. How does that collaboration between a Cisco and, for instance, a BT, how does that work? Can you, and then around, for instance, automation and simplification, can you give an example of that?
Yeah, so if you think about the way that we would work with a service provider, you have to think about it in two layers, okay? One is the underlay network, okay? So this is the transport layer that you build to support all of the services that BT sell to their customers today. And the second network is what we call the overlay network, which is the vast array of services, network services that BT would sell to their end user customer. Okay, now, ideally what you want to be able to do is tie the observability from the overlay network together with the underlay network. Because if you've got that full observability through both networks, you can start to offer enhanced SLAs to customers, enhanced service level agreements to customers, without having to make your core network too big. Okay, so ultimately what we're trying to do with the likes of BT and other service providers is rationalize their core network infrastructure while still allowing them to provide the optimum service to the end user customer through the overlay network. So building a platform-based approach around observability and management is critical to that. Another element of that we'll talk a bit later is about the energy efficiency that you can drive as you start to drive a more efficient core network as well. But that's maybe a topic for another discussion.
Good. Let's drill down a little bit on the second point, and that is security. I mean, if I look at, if we talk to CIOs, the investments that they're doing in their CISOs teams and their security is exploding. It keeps growing and growing and growing, and this is huge. So how do you see the role of Cisco helping its clients in making sure that their infrastructure and communication is really secure?
I see it in the basis of saying if it's connected, it needs to be protected. Okay, and Cisco has, we transport 80% of the traffic over the internet. We process 625 billion URL requests a day. Okay, when you do that, you have extensive visibility in terms of network behavior and what's going on. And the reality of the situation is, with that level of awareness and data, you have to be able to turn it into something meaningful to help our customers predict bad network behavior, possible threat, and the potential impact of that. So through data alone, I believe that Cisco's best placed to help our customers mitigate risk. Now, there is loads of small software niche vendors. The security market is the most fragmented market in the world. And it's the market where everybody says, I need to buy best of breed product in every single area. But it comes back to my earlier point. If you buy best of breed product in 15, 20 or 50 different areas of your network environment, they don't have the ability to share observability. Therefore, they can see something that looks normal, but potentially something has happened earlier on in the transport of that packet that would suggest it isn't normal. And therefore, people have been buying security solutions for best of breed, simplicity, easy to manage. But have we really improved security efficacy? Have we really reduced the number of threats that are hitting our businesses every day? No. I believe that security is moving to a world where we now need to think much more about the efficacy of our security environment, not just how easy it is to manage. And this is where the power of data will help. And this is where I believe Cisco's really well placed with the amount of data we're collecting on a minute by minute, second by second basis to help our customers understand security. Now, we have to package that up in a way that is easy for our customers to consume. And sometimes people will criticize us that we're a wee bit too complex in this space, and I'll take that criticism on board. But we're starting to package our products up in a way that it's much easier for our customers to consume in three key categories. The category that says, how do we protect the user? How do we protect the network and the application? And thirdly, how do we investigate the threat? Okay, and so we're beginning to package our security products up into three software suites that make it easier for our customers to consume in the longer term. So yeah, absolutely, I believe I can talk to any CISO or CIO about how Cisco can help them protect the connected far better and more effectively than they do today.
Now, Gordon, a very, very important topic which is now on board level in all big organizations, mid-sized, small organizations as well, is of course sustainability. And we all know that, what is it today? All the IT infrastructure already consumes 1 to 2% of global electricity and energy. And if we don't manage it, it will grow to 3-4% automatically, especially with cloud and the enormous exploding levels of data, and AI and so on is not going to help on that. So how do you look at that, and how do you see Cisco's role in making sure that our infrastructure stays manageable and sustainable?
Okay, so I see this in two ways. The first way, as you quite rightly said, IT consumes between 1 to 2% of the power consumption globally. And therefore, IT has to do a better job of making our products more efficient. We need to create circular supply chains, which is exactly what Cisco has been doing in the market space. And we have been innovating for nearly 20 years around power efficiency in our product portfolio. So today, I can build a product that I built 6 years ago, and I can make it 26 times more power efficient than I did 6 years ago. I can make it 36 times smaller than I did 6 years ago. And I can also give a commitment to using non-virgin materials in ways that I couldn't commit to 6 years ago as well. So we're very focused with all of our customers in terms of showing them how they can reduce significantly the power consumption, predominantly in the data center, okay, because that consumes a lot of power. And you know, we've got instances where the saving on power and cooling can pay for an infrastructure refresh in the data center over a 5-year period. So you can save as much by moving from older legacy-based technologies to newer compute and switching technologies, purely based on power savings alone. That's how much innovation has moved on in the last 5 or 6 years. However, it's 1 to 2%, it's the footprint. What I love to say to CIOs is, you can also be the handprint on the business and how the business can save energy. I'll give you one example. Corporate buildings, we're in one today, they consume 15% of the world's energy. If you can do something to make corporate buildings more power efficient, then you're onto something. So Cisco's been going through a process where we say to our employees, we're never going to mandate you to come back to the office, but we're going to create a magnet. The office is going to be a magnet, so you come back to the office. And at the heart of that is making our buildings, refreshing all of our buildings, okay? You know, making them much more collaborative spaces for people to want to come back to work from. But at the same time, we're re-engineering the way that we distribute power around that building. We use a technology called Power over Ethernet. So the Ethernet cable, the thing that many people thought was going to die out when Wi-Fi came along, is actually now distributing power around the building. Now we've refreshed a number of buildings in Cisco's estate. New York, Atlanta, Chicago. We've just opened Paris, Singapore. The interesting statistic in all of those offices is the footfall is back to pre-pandemic levels. Okay, so we're getting the same people through the door. The power consumption on average in those buildings is down 37%.
Oh, yeah.
So you imagine any CIO going to the CEO and saying, we can, in the new building we're building, we've got an ability to use technology to get the footfall back to pre-pandemic levels, and we can use technology to reduce the power consumption of the building by 35%. Tell me a CEO that's not going to say, show me how.
Yeah, they're all going to be very interested.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, your teams, I mean, you have an EMEA responsibility, right? They're a little bit spread all over Europe?
Yeah, so I've got teams spread across the whole of Europe, Middle East and Africa, supporting all of the service provider customers across those regions.
Okay, and have you seen a change in, I mean, we all have seen, but what was the change in your team before and after COVID and in how people work? What's the main change for you?
Okay, so I would say, so first and foremost, obviously, we're offering much more flexibility. We've always been flexible in terms of the way we work, but you know, that's happening with our customer base as well. So we're having to engage with our customers in a different way than we did pre-pandemic level. But we're also going through a large business transformation. We're going through a business transformation where, you know, we're driving much more of our portfolio from hardware to software. We're driving our portfolio, our engagement with our customer much more from a one-off sell-to experience to a life cycle experience where we engage with the customer around outcomes. And so that means that business operational change means a change for our sellers as well. So I've mentioned we have to change the way that we physically engage with the customer in terms of, you know, how we do that, a lot more virtual than we did in the past. But actually our sales approach is different now as well. So we're much more focused on the life cycle with the customer than we were pre-pandemic levels. So yeah, a big movement there in terms of...
And we'll come back to that shift that you're making in the way that you operate. The fourth thing that you mentioned was the user experience.
Yes.
So tell me more about that. How do I need to visualize that?
Okay, so yeah, so either you as a customer or you as an employee, we have to make the way that you interact with technology more intuitive. Okay, so for example, you have an iPad there. Okay, you want to connect to the network. If you connect to the network on this floor, you'll authenticate. If you go up one floor, do you really need to authenticate again? Okay, well, you know, the chances are if you've moved one floor in the corporate building, it's you. So, there's no need to re-authenticate again. However, if you go down the road to Starbucks or a coffee shop and you open up your iPad and you want to connect to the corporate network, you probably have to authenticate again as we go through. So we're trying to make sure we do things like improve security while reduce the friction for you to engage. Okay? So everything we're looking at is about how we can reduce the friction of engagement while improving the experience and protecting the security. And now that can be for customers using contact centers or using web chat or all of these sorts of things. AI and ML is going to make that much more intuitive as we engage.
Yep.
We're thinking about, for example, 5G offload as you go from a 5G network into an office environment onto the Wi-Fi network. Do you need to authenticate to go on with that, or can we do some secure offload handover between the networks? So user experience is critical for our ability to make sure we digitize the way that we operate, both with our customers and our employees. So yeah, big one.
And that's for the end user. Do you have the same thing, user experience and making things simple for the admins, let's say?
Of course. Sometimes we like to talk about how we want to simplify. I prefer to make it more effortless in terms of how you can operate. I still like there to be complexity in the technology and innovation in the technology at that level. But ultimately what we're trying to do is simplify. Okay, make it more effortless for you to, as an admin, to be able to operate the network. We're trying to, through AI and ML, push, insights to the admin to say, actually, we see a behavior over here that we don't like. Maybe you should shut down that user or shut down that server or do something over there. So AI and ML is going to help the admin much more over time. But at the same time, consolidating network management platforms into broader platforms will drive more consistency in terms of the way you operate and help reduce cost as well to make it easier for them. So yeah, a lot going on both in the end user space and in the network admin and management space to drive.
Fifth topic is innovation, and we talked about ML and AI. It's changing the world, right? The way that we work, the way that everybody works. So where do you see the quick wins today that you're building in your products, and where do you see this in a bit the midterm, longer term? Will we get to completely self-managed networks? Do we still need network admins in the future? Where do you see this going?
I think we will still need network admins. I think there's still an important element around human intuition that will always be required. However, so Cisco's approach to innovation has changed a lot over the last 5 years. For 30 odd years, our approach was really around feature development. Okay, so we would build a product, a strategic product, and we would then look to capture as many features and capabilities in that product as possible. Hey, look at our product, it's got all of these features in it, it's the best in the market and we should charge more for it. That was kind of the approach of the industry. It's still the approach of many of our competitors in the market space. But interestingly, when you create all of these features in a product, you then go back to look at how many of those features are being turned on. Right? Somewhere between 17 to 25%. Right. So, first of all, there's a cost to innovation that is not sustainable if all of the features are not being used, that you need to think about as part of our ESG strategy. And secondly, features don't deliver outcomes for customers. You need to think differently about how you innovate. So we moved from a traditional feature-based development model to what we call a modern or purposeful innovation model. And that purposeful innovation model was to say to all of our business units, we want you to innovate around these key themes. Okay, one theme was around sustainability and power efficiency. One theme was around embedding more security. If it's connected, it's protected. One theme was about creating standardizing and open APIs across our product portfolio so it was easier to integrate third-party product into it. So these sorts of broader purposeful innovation themes have now become the intent for Cisco around innovation. So I'm quite happy to talk to customers at times to say, well, I don't have that feature. But do you really need that feature? You know, it's not going to kill your business if you don't have that feature. It's more important for you to have a product that is more power efficient, that is more secure, that is easier to operate than you having one bespoke feature in your network. And you know, in today's modern world, the vast majority of our customers buy into that approach because they've got ESG targets as well. And they've got other corporate responsibility targets. There's other things that are important to them beyond a feature. And so our innovation has moved way beyond feature development as an organization.
Yeah. So you've gone through this very important change from product feature organization to an outcomes and a platform-driven organization. So how do you do that? I mean, a big corporate like Cisco, how do you make internally that change so that, I mean, does that come from the top? Does it come bottom up? What is the process that you have gone through as an organization?
Well, it's difficult, first of all.
I can imagine.
It's difficult, but it's totally top-down driven. You know, and if you look at, we're in a California headquartered organization. You know, nearly 50% of our business comes out of the US. But, you know, if you look around the world, we've got 16 countries where Cisco is voted the best company to work in from any other company. And so what that shows you culturally is we do a really great job of being able to take a culture, a methodology, an approach, a purpose, and we manage to embed that throughout our organization. Now, it's driven top down. It's constantly communicated and over-communicated. Everybody in the organization is engaged in terms of understanding that strategy. People are compensated around that strategy because compensation drives behavior at the end of the day, both in engineering and in sales. You know, so there is no doubt this journey has been difficult. We've been signaling this journey, you know, not for 1, 2 or 3 years. We've been signaling this journey to the market for many, many years. And it's really only in the last year and a bit where we're beginning to see the fruits of our labor in terms of the speed of our innovation, you know, in terms of our ability to deliver differentiated capability in the marketplace, in terms of the way our sales organization operate and our people feel part of the purpose as we move forward. There is no doubt you go through phases where people become slightly disengaged as you go through a difficult journey, but we've worked through that extremely well as an organization, and we're beginning to accelerate now based on our purpose.
Okay, super. Now, Gordon, let's talk a little bit more about you and your role that you have in the organization. So you're VP EMEA for the service provider business. Explain that a little bit to me. How is your team organized? What is it that you do? And where do you yourself spend most of your time? Okay,
so I have about 450 people in my team in EMEA, and our day-to-day job is to support our service provider customers in EMEA, build, support and operate their core infrastructures. So those infrastructures that support all of the services that they then go and sell to their end user customers, our job is to make sure those networks are reliable, perform well, sustainable, operate efficiently, etc. And our job is to make sure they operate well, but our job is also to guide our customers in terms of what they should be thinking about, how they should be transforming in the future, how they can think differently about the way they operate those infrastructures. So my job, in terms of how I spend my time, I spend a considerable amount of time with the customer, listening, understanding what are their challenges, what are they trying to do. We then spend quite a lot of time advising in terms of potentially routes and opportunities for mutual success. And then I do spend a lot of time internally with my people. Okay, I think it's important I spend a lot of one-to-one time with my direct leaders in terms of making sure that they are motivated to believe in the direction that we're going in. And I think it's also important that I spend a lot of step time, people who don't report directly to me but are in my organization, hearing from the top what's expected of them, how they should operate, how they should behave, what our vision is, why they should be excited for the future. So I probably spend probably 60% of my time on internal activities and about 40% of my time on external activities.
Okay, on that internal time, where are you manage your direct reports and the whole team. How would you describe your management style? And could you give maybe an example of that?
Yeah, so I would say there's a couple of things. So first of all, the key thing for me is to be as transparent as possible. My people who report to me need to understand why we're making the decisions we're making. I feel as if I can't explain to them in full transparency why we're making these decisions, it's very hard for me to create followership with them. They need to feel invested in the decision-making process. So the first thing I would say is, where possible, it's not always totally possible, but where possible, I try to be transparent around why and how we're making decisions. Okay. Ideally, they're inclusive decisions. Okay, so I involve them in terms of those decisions-making processes. If there's top-down decisions that we need to, why, and include them in them. So first and foremost, I would say my style is very inclusive and transparent in terms of how I approach them. The second thing I'm saying to them is I expect everyone to have an impact, right? You're employed to move the company from point A to point B. You need to have an impact. You need to believe you're having an impact. You need to be able to show that you're having an impact as well. So people will say that, in a nice way, that I also hold them accountable. I expect people to make progress, and I expect people to have an impact, and I expect them to show me the progress and the impact that they're having. The third thing I would say is they'll also see an element of vulnerability from me as well. Okay, I think all of us have vulnerability in us in our day-to-day lives, and for me to be the authentic leader I want to be, I'm prepared to say at times that I don't understand that, or I'm not good at that, or I have a challenge with that, or I'm disappointed at that. So they'll also see an element of vulnerability from me. Ultimately, I'm trying to be as authentic as possible to create the best level of followership as I possibly can.
And if I would go to your teams around EMEA and talk to them and say, what do you think they will say about you when you're not around?
I would say you can trust him. He'll listen. He'll not make a rash judgment. I would hope they would say I motivate, and I occasionally inspire. And I think they'd also say he expects a lot from them, because I do.
Yeah. So, Gordon, you come across as somebody who's has a very authentic style of leadership, who's very transparent, like you say, but also, of course, very results-driven, because that's what counts at the end of the day. So, what is it that really makes you happy? What is it that drives you in your work when at the end of the month or at the end of the week you go home, fly home and feel really, really good?
So I think the one thing I learned over the last few years is, if you can play to your strengths, if you know what you're good at and you can play to those strengths, you'll be happy, you'll enjoy what you do, and you'll probably have a better impact. And many, many years ago, I was very focused on what I'm not good at and what I need to improve. And we may talk about some of those things later on.
Let's hope so.
But the reality is I don't focus on them. Okay, I focus on the things that I believe are my strengths.
Okay.
And the things where I can deliver most positive impact. And if I believe I can do that, and if I believe I'm doing that, I go home happy. I go home happy.
So let's talk about your strengths. You shared with us your Clifton strengths profile, your personality profile, and that has 5 strengths. And maybe we can talk about that, and you can give an example, and also how other people that watch this video can use these views. So one of your strengths is that you are a maximizer, and that means that you focus on strengths as a way to stimulate personal and group excellence.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's exactly really what I've been saying up until now. Driving belief into people around what they're good at, letting people believe what they're good at, has a really motivational impact on people. And for so many leaders will come and talk about what you're not good at. I like to focus with all of my leaders and all of my people around what they're really good at.
Okay.
And if I focus around that, I think I can get a positive energy. I can get, I can get more output from people. That's not to say we still don't talk about things that we need a bit of improvement on. But yeah, Maximizer is about driving belief into people. If you've got belief, anything's possible.
Okay, super. Now the second thing is
Okay.
you have what is called the woo factor.
Okay.
What is that all about?
So the woo factor is about really enjoying and embracing being able to try and change people's minds.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and I love it. I love it. I love the ability to try and talk with clarity around why people's perceptions should maybe shift or adjust, or why that strategy could be slightly different. Never trying to tell people they're wrong, always trying to say to people there may be a slightly different way to achieve what you want to achieve. So I love the ability of the challenge of being able to get people to think differently.
Third one is you're an achiever. And it says here you take immense satisfaction from being busy and productive. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I think you'll always find that, when you're the master of your own diary, I always find that my diary is always full. And that's because I believe people want to engage with me. People want to have dialogue with me. People want to challenge me or get a perspective from me. Or people want to put me in front of their customer to challenge them or to ask for a perspective.
Yeah.
So for me, I want to be spending my time with people. That's when you're at your most productive, as opposed to behind a spreadsheet. So that's a big part of who I am.
Your fourth strength, according to your
I've got 4.
Yeah,
Wow,
5,
okay.
but we're only at number 4, is that you're an activator, and that means that you want to do things now rather than simply talk about them.
Well, my wife wouldn't say that when I'm at home, let me tell you that, when she asks me to do things. But yeah, look, I really believe that if you have belief in what it is you want to achieve, why put off to tomorrow what you can do today? Giving people the belief and the positivity that actually their idea is good. Go and challenge it. Go and try. Go and see if you can make that happen is what I'm all about. Although, as I said earlier on, I'm not like that in the house. And if my wife watches this video, she'll definitely not say that's a strength.
Okay, we'll cut that bit out. Number 5 is you're strong in conversation, which is clear. But so you do a lot of presentations and so on?
Yeah, I love it. My dad was a preacher when I grew up. So I went every Sunday to church when I was young. And I listened to my dad, at the pulpit, talk every week with passion around a topic that he fundamentally believed in. And, that inspired me.
Okay.
That inspired me and it made me want to be something similar.
Son of a preacher.
Son of a preacher man.
Okay. Now we've highlighted 5 strengths.
Okay.
Let's talk about a little bit at the flip side of things. Where are your development points? Where are the things that you're not strong at? And of course, good leaders they surround themselves with people that are strong in these points. Where are the things that you need to put extra attention on?
Well, okay, so I think I can always be more courageous. In the corporate world, it's very easy at times to find a middle ground, to negotiate to a middle ground. And sometimes I could walk away from environments or conversations or situations where I wish I had been more courageous. And over time, you start to recognize that you should have been more courageous. And I think that's a trait that definitely still sits inside of me. I'm always looking to drive the positive in the conversation as opposed to the negative. But sometimes you just need to be blunt and be able to challenge and be courageous.
Yep.
There's definitely been times where I've walked away saying I could do a better job there. The other thing I think that is something I live by today is diversity of thought. I'm white male in my 50s. I'm predominantly surrounded by white males in my 50s in the technology and the IT sector. And that's really dangerous. It's really not good. And I've learned over the years the importance of driving diversity of thought in any decision-making process.
But that's not an easy thing, I can imagine. I mean, you're a very high-tech company, lots of engineers, it's a very male-dominant world. So how do you build diversity in your own teams?
You force it.
Uh-huh.
You force it. You have to force it. And you have to, if there's two people equal applying for the same job and one's diverse, you give it to the person that's diverse. Because critical to any company's success is the diversity of thought that you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And for me, in my formative years as a leader, I didn't recognize that. I didn't see it. It's something I see very clearly and very vividly today.
Okay. Let's dive a level deeper, Gordon. We talked about your strengths and development points. Let's talk about the core values. You shared with us that you have 3 children.
Yep.
29, 20, 17. What are the values that you have brought them up with? What are the core values that you live by yourself that you have passed on to your children?
If you look at my upbringing, I had a fantastic upbringing, but when you look at me academically, I'm certainly nowhere near the brightest person in the room. In many instances, academically, I'm the dumbest person in the room. It doesn't bother me. It created a mentality in me when I was young, which was about never giving up. And if you look at everybody who has a mantra around never giving up, Oprah Winfrey, she was rejected as a news anchor in her formative years in the industry. Michael Jordan was rejected at university from being a basketball player. People like that are the people that inspire me. And it's really the kind of message I try to drive out into my organization, but into my family life as well. I think the 2 things I would say to my kids is play to your strengths, do what you love, and never give up.
Okay. If you reflect back on your personal life, your professional life, what is it that is maybe one of the best things that has ever happened to you in your life?
I would say, so I joined Cisco when I was 30. I very quickly rose up through the ranks in the organization from being an individual contributor to a director in the organization by the time I was 38. I felt as if it was easy. I felt as if I had the world at my feet. And between the age of 38 and 46, every year people told me I was great at my job. Gordon, you're great at your job. You're doing fantastic. And for 8 years, I never got promoted once. And I questioned that to the point where, I nearly left Cisco. I had a job offer from one of our key competitors to go and run their business in EMEA. And on the 21st of December one year, I decided with my wife really decided that you shouldn't go to a key competitor when you'd invested so much in Cisco. And I reached out to a lady at Cisco called Cassandra Frangos, who was head of talent at the time in the organization. And she said to me, you need to own your career. Cisco cares about your employment, cares about your well-being, cares about your safety. But the reality is you need to care about your career. And it wasn't until I was 46 that I purposefully started to think about my career. And when I mentor loads of younger people in the organization now, the key thing I say to them is, you own your career development. Nobody else owns your career development, you do. And you build plans to win sales deals, or you build plans to project manage whatever it is you do internally. You have to invest the same into yourself. You have to build a plan for you. You have to work out how you're going to develop your career in a company. And I didn't learn that until I was 46. And since then, it's helped me develop and accelerate my career. Now I'm 56. 10 years later, I've managed to be promoted multiple times in the organization, purely because somebody showed me that I needed to take care and ownership of my career. That was the biggest learning in corporate life I've ever had.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. Now, we talk about mentorship, that you mentor people in the organization. Were there other people in your career that have mentored you, or people that you look up to, that you have learned from, that you could talk about?
So Cassandra Frangos was somebody who had a significant impact on my life, but I've also worked for at Cisco so many phenomenal leaders. It's really hard to pull out any of them individually, and if I was to pull out one, I think the rest of them would all complain about why I had not pulled out them. But look, every single leader that I've worked for in Cisco, I've learned a phenomenal amount from in terms of the way to operate, and the way to conduct myself, the way to think, the way to make decisions. But ultimately, it's my dad. You know, that preacher that I saw as an early child, that man that was with me till I was in my 50s, is ultimately the person I look up to more than anybody else in terms of turning me into, hopefully, you know, something that he would be proud of.
Yeah. So Gordon, you built quite a career in a big tech company, but we all have our downfalls, we all have our failures as well. We all make our mistakes, and we need to learn from our mistakes. You talked about managing career, but is there another thing that you could share that you would consider a brilliant mistake that you made in your career, and can you share what you learned from it?
I think, first of all, I would say I've made mistakes every week in terms of the way I operate. And the first thing you need to be is you need to be transparent and put your hand up if you believe you've made a fundamental error or a fundamental mistake. You should never try to hide it. You should never try to, you know, push it away or try and shove it underneath the carpet. I think the first thing in terms of mistakes
is own it.
Is own it. Is own it, right? Is the first thing I've learned. If you own it, people will respect you. You're allowed to make mistakes as long as you own it.
Yep.
If you don't own it, that's when you run into trouble. So I would say, you know, has there been one transformational moment where I've made a spectacular mistake that's made me change the way I am? Probably not. Maybe dropping out of university to think I could become a professional golfer. But I owned it. I owned it, right? And I adjusted. But I would say you're going to make loads of mistakes. Just own them. Own them.
Okay, let's dive a level deeper, if you allow, Gordon, and let's talk a little bit about life itself. What is it that you love most in life, and what is it that you fear most?
I love family. I love what I've built and created with my wife. I love see how they change every day. They mature every day, and they turn from being children into adolescents and into adults. And watching that probably gives me, although I probably don't say it to them enough, probably gives me more pleasure than anything else. I fear, like most people, you know, not being here. My wife and I have gone through some challenging times over the last year or so where both of us potentially might not have been here, and it makes you realise the importance of the moment and to live in the moment. And you know, today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. Indeed, right? And I think, you know, recognising how important every day is more than anything else is what's important to me.
Gordon, do you have a personal mantra, a saying that helps you in difficult times to make a decision or to go and do the extra mile?
I don't really. There isn't anything I think my team would say that Gordon says, you know, is the click, is the thing that really matters. But I do think what they would say is, we'll find a way. We'll find a way. My mantra is to never give up. My thought process is to always find a way. And I'm not sure my team would turn round to you and say, Gordon says we'll always find a way. But I hope deep down, if they were to think about, as they engage with me, they would say, do you know what? We'll always find a way. And so I would say to you, that would be, we'll find a way.
Super. So Gordon, we're coming to the end of this interview. Thank you so much for your time. And so our interviews are watched by many different kind of people, but also young professionals that are very ambitious and I want to build a big career in a high-tech company. What is the advice that you as a VP of Cisco would give to these ambitious professionals?
Okay, so I'll say a number of things around owning your career. Okay, for me, the first element of owning your career is validating what you're good at. I don't care what I think I'm good at, it's what others think I'm good at. So the first thing they need to do is validate what others believe they're good at. They'll have 3 or 4 key competencies that people see in them every day. Play to your strengths, number 1. Second thing I would say to them is build your career around those strengths. Those are the things that will help you shine. Those are the things that will allow you to stand out from the crowd. And there will be roles and functions in your organisation that fundamentally play to those strengths. Understand those roles and functions in the organisation. Third, get to know the leaders who lead those organisations. Your stakeholder network is critical to your ability to build your career. Focus on people who operate in the areas of the business that you know your strengths will align to. Don't spend too much time in parts of the organisation where maybe your strengths aren't as aligned to as possible. And the final thing I'll say is find a way to influence them. Now, this is the hardest part. Get to know them, okay? Start to influence them is something completely different. Now, that's a whole different ball. We could spend 90 minutes talking about the ability to influence people. But there are some great tools and techniques out there around things like subliminal influence, how you can influence people subliminally without them even knowing, that I use every day in terms of my ability to influence people to build a broader stakeholder network. Know your strengths, understand the parts of the organisation where those strengths align, know the leaders in those businesses, start to influence them. That's ultimately what I think a career plan is. Career plan isn't I'm going to do this job, then that job, then this job. A career plan is about building a network. That's how you build your career.
Okay, super. And on that note, Gordon, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure doing this interview.
Thank you. Thoroughly enjoyed it.